all these people that think they can detect lies, especially the YouTube crowd, it's just BS.
I agree.
You agree?
I completely agree. I completely agree because so micro expressions and the mastery of micro expression, it's real. But the problem is that it takes a very specific environment for that stuff to work. And I'm so glad you're bringing this up, right? And I'm so glad to know that Joe is out there telling the truth about this because it is such bullshit. When you hear certain experts talk about micro expressions and reading someone's face, they are assuming it's happening in an interrogation setting. And in an interrogation setting, you control the environment, and the poor bastards sitting across from you cannot leave. They're a captive audience. They have to have this conversation. And you control what they eat, what they drink, the temperature in the room, the smell. You control everything long before...
I won't ask how they control the smell.
Long before you ever start having an actual interrogation where there's two people usually in the interrogation, swapping questions so that both can watch the micro expressions, because it's very hard to identify someone's blink rate or someone's eyebrow movements or it's hard. It's just hard to do if you're having an engaged conversation. Field operations and the kind of shit that 90%, 99% of people do, you're not in a captive audience. That person can leave. You don't control the temperature of the room. You don't control what they ate in the morning or when they showed up for them. You don't control it. So they could be looking up to the upper left-hand corner just because they saw a bird flying by.
Right.
They could be...
Oh, the eye thing is always such BS. Every time I'm on a YouTube video, there's a comment like, he looked up and to the right, he must be lying. And I'm like, dude, there's a freaking camera up there, or there's an audience with an upper row. I'm looking at the person who sneezed. You're not reading my body language, you numbskull.
Furrowing an eyebrow could be because they were confused or because they felt a breeze on their head or any number of things that you can't control. So the whole idea of mastering this lie detection through visual identification of behaviors only applies if you're in a controlled environment. The second place where it applies is if you have a standing relationship, what's known as a baseline, with the person.
This is why your mom knows, well, except for you and your kids because they're spy progeny, but most people, you kind of know when your kid's lying because you have a 30, 20, 10, whatever year-long baseline on them, so you know that they're being kind of weird. You're not looking at me.
It's why husbands know when their wives are lying, even when their wives say, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. Well, that's also not that coded in. That's not that, they're not trying to hide shit. By the way, pro tip, she's not fine. But Jen will be like, if she's like, hey, do you like that? I'm like, yeah. She's like, no, you don't. Because you're not talking. And when you don't talk while you're eating, it means you don't like the food. Stuff I don't even notice about myself. She's like, no, I know. I know you don't like that. I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, if I could turn all that shit off with a light switch, it would be awesome. Yeah. Because all it's doing is it's dumbing Americans down. It's distracting them from actual skills. Knowing when you're being lied to is such a useful skill, and you can actually master that skill. But you will not master that skill if you're worried about micro expressions in the face or blink rates. It's just not going to happen.
What does it take to master that type of skill? Like learning how to essentially interrogate somebody?
Well, it's not interrogation because they're not a captive audience.
Right.
What you have to do is you have to learn how to assess verbal and nonverbal cues.
Okay.
And that's something that we teach. My company teaches that. I teach that to people all the time.
Cool.
It's just a matter of understanding how people work, how the brain works, and how people respond to different types of questions. And then you just kind of set up a system of asking certain types of questions and seeing what the response is and how that response varies from the baseline that was set the last time you asked that kind of question.
It's interesting. I would love to get into more of that in a future episode for sure. There's one, Dr. Daniel Lieberman. Do you know who he is?
I've heard that name
Man,
too.
he's so good at this. And one of the tricks that I remember from his episode, I should re-listen to my own episode. One of the tricks I remember was he said, when you think somebody's lying to you, fill in the reason that they did the thing. So if it's like your teenager was late. Why were you late coming home? Was it because of the water main break? Right? Instead of why were you late coming home? And they're like, no reason. You say, was it because of the water main break? And then what a liar will do is hesitate because they're like, shit, should I agree with that? Or should I disagree with that? And that hesitation shows you they're lying. But if they're not lying, you go, were you late? Were you late because of the water main break? I don't know. There was just a shitload of traffic. That's all. Is there a water main break? Is that why there was traffic? They're probably not lying. But the hesitation, which you really cannot turn off manually unless you are extremely skilled, That's the killer, and that's the indicator.
I mean,
That's the tell.
a similar example to that is asking people what we call emotional questions. Ask someone how they feel, because you know what happens is when you ask someone how they feel, they recall the feeling, right? Like, how did you feel when your son was born? Like, you know exactly how you felt.
Sure.
It's on your face that you can remember exactly how you feel.
I'm trying really hard not to smile with this part of the conversation. I was like, I'm gonna throw him a curveball and not do anything. Like, dang, this guy's a cold bastard. Doesn't even care when his son was born.
But what ends up happening is when when you ask an emotional question, the first response is always the true response. Like,
I see.
You can see it in their face that they're remembering the real feeling. But then the hesitation is when they assess, should I tell them the real feeling or should I make a different feeling up? And then you can see that transition too. Because you can see from the relaxed face to the thoughtful face to then they make a decision and then they actually say something.
You know, it's interesting that it's also hesitation based. I mean, maybe this just happens to be because it's also hesitation, the example I gave you.
That's what made me realize.
I
That's
see.
what made me come up with the example. Like, that
Interesting.
hesitation is a true tell.
It's really hard to break it, right? So it's a true tell. Yeah, that does make sense. That's an interesting point. It's very, even if you are, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to get tricky with this Lieberman thing, this little technique. It is very difficult. You have to rehearse that lie and think of all these different things they might ask you, or you have to decide, I'm going to say this no matter what, but if it doesn't make sense, then it's weird as hell.
And that's what you're looking for.
Right, and you're looking for that too, if you're smart. Yeah, that's fascinating. I watched that video where you were analyzing Mission Impossible.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was so funny. I wonder if I for sure have some questions on that. I gotta figure this out.
I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Oh yeah, in that video, there's one part where they show, I can't remember if this is also Mission Impossible, but they show him working on a team, and it's like,
You may select any 2 team members, but it is essential that the 3rd team member be Naya Nordorf Hall. She is a civilian.
I expected you to go, yeah, we don't pair them up with random folks, but apparently that's not correct. Apparently that is something that happens.
Yeah,
Tell
I mean,
me about
they'll pair you up with random people who are vetted by them because they want the team to work together. You got to understand that when CIA builds a team, they're not looking for teamwork. What they're looking for is a mix of skill sets and personality fit, because they already know if you're going to work or not based on your personality and your behaviors. And they also know that a high performance team has conflict baked in. So when they build a team, like, it doesn't matter what you think you want because they know what will biologically work. So that's why they can pair you up with somebody who's completely strange, like a complete stranger to you, but vetted by them, because they know under pressure, the 2 of you are going to jive. Or they know that under pressure, the 2 of you are going to have conflict, but then there's this 3rd person or 4th person on the team that's going to resolve that conflict, and that makes you a high performance team.
That's interesting.
The big mistake that most people make is they build teams of people who will get along.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
If you build a team of people who will get along, that's how all the bad ideas get elevated to the top.
Oof.
Because it's like, I like you and I don't want to disagree with you, so I'm going to say yes to your bad idea. Even though I have a better idea, I'll keep quiet about it.
Yeah, I'm going to butcher this analogy here, but do you ever see that movie about Queen? I forget what it's called. I think it's called Bohemian Rhapsody or something.
I haven't seen that.
It's pretty good. I'm not a huge music guy or whatever, but there's a part where Rami Malek, he goes off and he does his own thing because they're not getting along, right? And then he goes back to them, I don't know, however many years later. And he goes, the problem is not that what those guys with the new band didn't do what I wanted them to do. The problem is they just did whatever I wanted them to do. Whereas the old band, they were like, no, we're going to do this riff. And he would get so mad because he's like, it's my idea. But the music was crap. Ish, I guess. People are going to email me about how that was the best era. I don't care. You're ruining my metaphor. You're ruining my analogy. The idea was when the bassist or the guitarist or the drummer was like, I want to do this. This is the right thing to do in this situation. That was like where the gold came out. That was the magic. It wasn't just about what he wanted, but when he got whatever he wanted, it just wasn't that good. It's very similar to what you're saying about the team.
Absolutely. And the difference is that CIA is pulling from decades of industry secrets in the intelligence world and an unlimited budget that they use to hire the most modern day current psychology and education that's out there. They're pulling from both to make sure that their team always has an edge over their adversaries. That's the way it works. So when CIA builds a team and they build a team for conflict, and then you're put on the team, you already know to expect, I'm not going to get along with everybody on the team, but I don't have to. My job is not to get along. My job is to make sure that in this AOR or in this technical expertise or in this planning piece, I stand my ground. And then everybody has to work together. And then there's usually somebody who's kind of what we call the lion of the group. There's some lion who ultimately has to make the final decision.
It would be so fun to be one of the psychologists or psychiatrists who's like, these two people, they are going to really not get along. And this is going to be a fun read, folks. This is going to be a fun watch, however they're monitoring you. Because it's like Andrew and her, nails meet chalkboard, right? And they're just like waiting for you. You're going and they're like, I got this. And it's just like, nope, this person is going to push every single one of your buttons and then put more buttons in that you didn't know were there and push those even harder. It's like, oh, that would just be so fun.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, except that we are all under a time constraint. So if we actually had space and time to enjoy watching the show, we probably would. But instead, we're all thrown in there and we're like, we've got 72 hours to make this thing happen. No one's going to sleep. We're all going to argue. But at the end of 72 hours, the op will either be successful and we'll all fist bump each other and be happy to meet each other, or the op will be a failure and we're all going to be like, we all failed.
Yeah.
It wasn't Susan's fault. It was all of us.
Well, there's a lab certainly where they test these things. That's the fun part, right? Because the stakes are lower. You're just trying to see if you can piss people off enough that they do their best work. Teach me how to be a better liar. I am a freaking terrible liar. There's probably not a situation, actually that's a lie too. There's probably a situation in which I should become a better one. I'm curious. And a lot of people reading or listening and watching, let me retake that. No one's reading this. Maybe there's a few deaf people reading this, but people watching and listening, they're for sure, everybody wants to know how to be a better liar. Like, oh, it takes a lot of work to detect lies. Okay, how do I just lie better? Yeah, certainly that's easier.
Yeah, it is, and that's a great point. Learning how to lie is much easier than learning how to detect liars. And honestly, learning how to lie is really just a matter of aligning your rational and your emotional brain, your left and right hemispheres. The thing that most people do wrong with lying is they don't pre-plan the lie. And then if they do pre-plan the lie, they don't rehearse the lie. So what I mean by that is if you don't know the lie that you're telling, you just lie spontaneously, it's hard to remember that. It's hard to keep the facts straight when you have to recreate or recall the lie that you made in the moment, right? So trained liars do not spontaneously lie, because when you spontaneously lie, you don't know what your body's doing. You don't know what your face is doing. You don't know what you're going to say next, if it's going to be congruent with the lie that you just made. You don't know that in 7 days, you're going to remember the lie that you just had. So it's very dangerous and amateur to lie spontaneously.
I see.
Instead, you plan your lie in advance. Well, the next mistake people make is they don't practice the lie. So if you plan a lie, like if I'm in my head in the shower and I'm like, I'm going to tell my wife that I didn't spend $500 on furniture. Right? I'm going to lie to her. I'm not going to admit that I spent that money. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. But you've never practiced saying the words, I didn't buy new furniture. You never practiced saying the words, oh, I did buy that couch, but it only cost $150. And because you haven't practiced saying it, there's a body-brain disconnect. So then when you actually go to say it, you stumble over your own words.
The thing is, Tom, yes, it was $500.
Right? And that's, so you have to premeditate your lie. You have to rehearse and actually build the muscle memory to state the lie. Those are the two fastest ways to become a very good liar.
Yeah, that makes sense. You see it with kids, man. They don't think about it ahead of time. Oh, hopefully, they don't think about it too much ahead of time. They don't rehearse the lie. That's, that stuff in the moment will get you every time.
And parents lie to their kids all the time, right? We lie to our kids all the time. We tell them that gum is going to rot their teeth, or that TV screens are going to rot their eyes, or whatever. And you know what we do? We say the exact same thing over and over again. I bet you can recall 5 or 7 things that your parents said to you, rote memory.
Yeah.
They said this all the time. They said, don't do this or this would happen. Don't do this or this would happen. They like, that's them lying.
Don't make funny faces. It'll stay that way. That was one of the OG kind of cliches, right?
Yeah, but it becomes muscle memory is built. So even though they know it's a lie, and even though you know it's a lie, they can't stop the brain-body connection from the muscle memory of just saying it over and over again. That's perfect when you're trying to actually lie. When you're trying to actually say, I got that couch at a discount, it cost $150. Like, you want to say that exact same phrase every single time anybody ever asks you about that couch.
Yeah. Bold of you to assume she's never going to check the credit card statement or whatever.
But that's what you do.
Right. Man, manipulation and motivation are two sides of the same coin. I've heard you say this in other interviews. What do you mean by that?
So when it comes to CIA and when it comes to human operations, human intelligence operations, people love to throw around the word manipulate.
Yeah.
And manipulation has such a negative connotation all over the world.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, oh, don't manipulate me. It's wrong to manipulate him. Don't manipulate her. Don't manipulate your kids. So manipulation has this strong negative connotation.
Okay.
But in reality, all manipulation is directing human behavior. Well, when you look and you consider motivation, what is motivation? Motivation is just directing human behavior. So they're both going for the same outcome. But motivation has this fantastic connotation.
Right.
Like, oh, you're a motivator. You're a motivational speaker.
Right. No, you're not a manipulator speaker. Nobody's hiring that
You're
guy.
not a manipulation speaker, exactly.
Right.
But they both do the same thing. It's all about getting people to do something, getting people to take some action. The thing that really makes motivation, and even at CIA, what we're taught is that motivation and manipulation are both useful tools to getting information. You just have to decide whether or not you want to use motivation or manipulation in any given moment, because the outcome is the same. The skills to apply it are the same. The only thing that's different is the actual way that you leverage those skills.
I see.
Manipulation is defined as getting people to take an action that's not in their best interest. That's manipulation.
Oh, so you just make it in their best interest to do something.
And then it's motivation. When I get you to do something that's good for me and bad for you, I manipulate you. When I get you to do something that's good for you and good for me, I just motivated you.
Right.
Right? I motivated you because you get something out of it.
It seems like the carrot is probably more powerful than the stick.
In most cases, we start with motivation. In fact, that is one of the core tenets of intelligence doctrine is start with motivation, right? Try to get people to do what's in their best interest first, because once you connect doing this task is in your best interest, every time you ask them to do it again, it's that much easier.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But when you...
Yeah, if you got to put a gun to someone's head, you got to put a gun to someone's head every single time.
And the gun has to get bigger, and the bullets have, you can't just use the same 9mm every time because they're like, you've done this to me before.
Right, yeah.
Now it's like, oh, I've got two gunmen. Now I've got you in a private room with a sack over your head. Now, it just gets worse and worse.
That makes sense. There's an acronym for people who... I can't remember exactly what it is, but when you're talking about counterintelligence, it's like money... The motivators are like money, ideology... Coercion
and ego.
Okay. Yeah, I knew it was rice. So why do I think it's rice?
So rice is what I teach.
I see.
Rice is the most modern version of it.
Okay.
Mice is the pre-9/11 Cold War version of it.
Okay.
But it basically stands for the same thing, right? These are the 4 core motivations that make any of us do anything. Motivation or manipulation. And those 4 core motivations are reward.
Reward, yeah.
Ideology, coercion, and ego. Like, at any given time, if she offered you a special ice cream dessert, that might be enough to get you to cut the interview off early and go out to ice cream with your wife, right? That's reward. You are trying to do the best possible interview you can. That's why you have backup microphones. That's an example of ideology. Coercion is putting a bullet to someone's head, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to stay here or else I'm going to, fine you, whatever it is.
Okay.
That's coercion. Ego, you want to have the public see you a certain way. That's your public persona. That is ego. Not the same as egotistical. Egotistical means you have to be powerful and correct all the time, but you also have an ego. I mean, we just edited a part out of this interview because you accidentally said the word read and you were like, no one's actually going to read this.
Right.
That's part of your ego where you're like, I'm very particular, and I want people to see that I want to deliver a product that is a particular type of product. That's
Leave that in just to screw up. Jace, leave it in. Leave in me telling you to leave it in. So then it's back on me. That's how this works.